The dependent verification alert hit my phone at 0347 hours while I was running pre-flight checks on an F-35. I'm Airman First Class Ronin Winslow, 28 years old, stationed at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. Been deployed here for 6 months, working advanced tactical aircraft maintenance. The notifications seemed routine at first. Military personnel flight wanted to verify my dependent information for updated housing allowances. I pulled up the secure portal during my break. 3 dependents listed under my profile: my wife Cassandra, my daughter Emma, and someone named Marcus Chen, age 16, listed as my stepson. I don't have a stepson. I called the MPF immediately. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez pulled my file while I waited on hold. The documents looked legitimate. Social Security card, birth certificate, school enrollment records from Tampa, even a notarized custody agreement dated 8 months ago, all bearing my forged signature. "Sir, these came through proper channels," Rodriguez said. "Your cousin Dexter submitted the paperwork when you first deployed. Said you'd been too busy with pre-training to handle it yourself." Dexter. My cousin who'd helped me organize my affairs before shipping out. Who had access to my personal documents. Who knew my social security number and banking information. "How much extra housing allowance has been paid out?" I asked. "Let me calculate that." Paper shuffled on his. "Looks like approximately $4,000 over the past 6 months, sir." My hands went cold. $4,000. Money I never saw. Money that should have gone to my actual family. I hung up and immediately called my bank. The automated system confirmed my checking account balance. Then I checked my military pay statements online. The housing allowance deposits matched what Rodriguez had calculated. But the money wasn't in my account. Someone had been intercepting those payments for months. I scrolled through my recent transactions. Nothing unusual. No large withdrawals. No suspicious transfers. Whoever was doing this had found another way to access the funds without touching my primary accounts. My phone buzzed with a text from Dexter. "Hey, cuz, hope's going well. Let me know if you need anything handled back home." The message felt different now. Calculated, like he was checking to see if I'd discovered anything yet. I screenshot the dependent verification alert and saved it to my secure folder. Then I started documenting everything. The fake stepson, the forged documents, the missing housing allowance payments. $4,000 was just the beginning. I needed to understand how deep this went before making any moves. Dexter wasn't just some random scammer. He was family. He'd been in my house. He knew my routines. He had legitimate access to information that would take most criminals months to gather. The timeline started making sense. 6 months ago, right after I deployed to Eglin, Dexter had offered to help manage my paperwork. Said he'd handle any military administrative issues that came up while I was busy with training rotations. I'd been grateful. Prep had been overwhelming, and having someone trustworthy handle the bureaucratic details seemed like a blessing. I should have known better. I called Technical Sergeant Maria Vasquez from the 96th Communications Squadron. We'd worked together on network security protocols, and she owed me a favor from when I'd covered her weekend duty rotation last month. "Vasquez here. Maria, it's Ronin. I need help tracking some financial irregularities." "Unofficial capacity." "What kind of irregularities?" "Someone's been claiming military benefits using forged dependent documents. I think they've been intercepting housing allowance payments." She was quiet for a moment. "That's federal fraud, Ronin. You sure about this?" "I'm sure. Can you help me trace where the money's going?" "Meet me at the base library in 20 minutes. Bring everything you've got." The base library was nearly empty at 1,400 hours. Maria had claimed a corner table near the computer terminals. She looked up when I approached, her expression serious. "Show me what you found." I pulled out my phone and walked her through the dependent verification alert, the MPF records, and the housing allowance calculations. She took notes on a legal pad, occasionally asking for clarification on dates and amounts. "This is sophisticated," she said finally. "Whoever did this understands military pay systems. They knew exactly which forms to file and when to file them. My cousin Dexter handled my paperwork. He had access to everything. Family makes it easier. No suspicious background checks. No red flags when he contacts military offices on your behalf." She tapped her pen against the pad. "We need to figure out where the money's going." Housing allowance payments are direct deposit only. So either he's got access to an account you don't know about, or he's found a way to redirect the payments. How would he do that? Bank routing number change. New account set up using your information. Or he could have opened a joint account somewhere and added himself as an authorized user. She looked at her notes. $4,000 over 6 months. That's not enough to trigger most fraud detection systems. Smart. I felt sick. What's our next move? We need to trace the payment trail. I can help you request detailed records from DFAS, but that'll take time. Meanwhile, you should check your credit report. If he's been opening accounts in your name, they'll show up there. I pulled up my credit monitoring app on my phone. The report loaded slowly over the base Wi-Fi. When it finally appeared, my stomach dropped. 3 new accounts I'd never opened. A checking account at a regional credit union. A savings account at a different financial institution. And a credit card with a $5,000 limit. All opened within the past 8 months. All showing regular activity. Maria, look at this. She leaned over to see my phone screen. Son of a bitch. He's been busy. The checking account showed monthly deposits, matching my housing allowance payments. The savings account had a current balance of $3,800. The credit card was maxed out. He's not just stealing your benefits, Maria said. He's building a whole financial identity using your credit. I scrolled through the transaction history on the credit card. Gas stations in Tampa. Grocery stores. A payment to something called Sunshine State Auto Repair for $1,200. All charges made while I was deployed 300 miles away. This is enough to involve law enforcement, Maria said. But we should gather more before we make any official reports. Once this goes legal, you won't have control over the investigation timeline. What do you recommend? Document everything. Screenshot all these accounts. Request official statements from each financial institution and see if you can get Dexter to admit something over text or email. The idea of confronting Dexter directly made my chest tight. We'd grown up together, spent summers at our grandmother's house in Clearwater. He'd been at my high school graduation, my military send-off party. But the awe was undeniable. The fake stepson, the forged documents, the unauthorized accounts, the stolen benefits. There's something else, Maria said. If he's done this to you, he might be doing it to other deployed service members. This could be bigger than just your case. That possibility hadn't occurred to me. But it made sense. Dexter knew other military families. He'd been around the community for years. If he'd perfected this system with my accounts, why wouldn't he expand it? How do we find out? Carefully. We start by checking if any of your deployed friends have noticed similar irregularities. But we can't tip him off that we're investigating. I thought about my group. 8 airmen from different squadrons, all stationed at Eglin for the same training rotation. Most of them had family back home handling their affairs. I'll reach out to a few people, see if anyone's noticed anything unusual with their pay or benefits. Good. Meanwhile, I'll see what I can find out about these financial institutions. Sometimes fraud patterns show up across multiple victims. We spent another hour documenting everything. Maria helped me organize into a timeline. The pattern was clear. Dexter had waited until I was fully deployed and settled into my routine before implementing his plan. He'd started small with the dependent fraud, then expanded into identity theft once he confirmed the system worked. One more thing, Maria said as we prepared to leave. Don't change your banking passwords or account settings yet. If he's monitoring your accounts, any sudden changes might spook him into covering his tracks. So I just let him keep stealing. For now, we need him to feel secure so he doesn't destroy. Once we have everything documented, we'll move fast. I walked back to my quarters, feeling like I was carrying a lead weight in my chest. 6 months of trust. 6 months of thinking someone had my back while I served my country. 6 months of being played by someone who was supposed to be family. My phone buzzed with another text from Dexter. Saw on Facebook that your unit's doing some cool training exercises. Stay safe out there, brother. The casual tone felt like a slap. He was checking in, making sure I was still deployed and distracted. still unaware of what he'd been doing back home. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Thanks. Everything good on your?" His reply came back immediately. "All good here. Taking care of business like always." Taking care of business. The phrase took on a whole new meaning now. I had enough to destroy him. But I needed to be smart about it. One wrong move, and he'd disappear with whatever money he hadn't already spent. Or worse, he'd find a way to make it look like I was the one committing fraud. The next phase would require patience. And planning. But first, I needed to find out how many other people he'd betrayed. The next morning, I called Detective Johnson from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's Electronic Crimes Task Force. Maria had given me his direct number. "Detective Johnson speaking. This is Airman First Class Ronin Winslow, stationed at Eglin. I need to report identity theft and military benefits fraud. How much are we talking about?" "At least $12,000. Possibly more. The suspect is my cousin. He's been adding fake dependents to my military profile and using my identity to open accounts." Johnson's tone shifted. "Military benefits fraud is federal. I'll need to coordinate with the appropriate agencies. Can you come in today?" "Yes, sir." 2 hours later, I sat in a sterile conference room at the FDLE field office in Pensacola. Johnson was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with the kind of focused intensity that comes from working financial crimes. "Walk me through everything," he said, setting up a recording device. I laid out the timeline, the dependent additions, the credit accounts, the addresses I'd never lived at. Johnson took notes and asked specific questions about dates and amounts. "Your cousin had access to your personal documents?" I gave him power of attorney before my standard procedure for handling affairs while overseas. "And he used that access to commit fraud." Johnson leaned back. "The dependent fraud alone is a felony. Adding the identity theft charges, we're looking at serious federal time. What's the next step? We need a controlled contact, get him to admit what he's done on record. Are you willing to wear a wire?" The question hit me like a physical blow. Wearing a wire meant crossing a line I couldn't uncross. It meant accepting that Dexter wasn't just a thief. He was an enemy. "Yes." Johnson nodded. "We'll set up a meeting. Somewhere public but quiet enough to get clear audio. You'll need to guide the conversation toward the fraud without being obvious about it." "How do I do that?" "Suspicious but not accusatory. Tell him you've been getting strange calls from financial institutions. See if he volunteers information or tries to deflect. The key is making him think he needs to explain himself." We spent the next hour planning the approach. Johnson would coordinate with federal investigators since military benefits were involved. The meeting would happen within 48 hours. "One more thing," Johnson said as we wrapped up. "Don't contact him until we're ready. Any change in your normal communication pattern could raise red flags." I drove back to base feeling like I was preparing for a combat mission. In a way, I was. The next day, Johnson called with the setup details. "We've arranged for surveillance at Pensacola Beach. There's a pavilion area that's usually quiet on weekday afternoons. You'll wear a wire and recording device. We'll have eyes on you the entire time." "When?" "Tomorrow at 1,400 hours. Tell him you're getting a day pass and want to catch up in person." That evening, I sent Dexter a text. "Got a day pass tomorrow. Want to meet up? Been dealing with some weird financial stuff and could use someone to talk to." His response came back within minutes. "Absolutely. Where do you want to meet?" "Pensacola Beach. That pavilion area near the pier. 2 p.m. work?" "Perfect. See you there, brother." The word brother felt like poison. The next afternoon, I sat in an FDLE van while technicians fitted me with recording equipment. The wire was smaller than I'd expected, barely visible under my civilian shirt. "Remember," Johnson said, "let him do most of the talking. If he starts getting suspicious, back off and try a different angle." "What if he doesn't admit anything?" "Then we go with the we have." But a confession makes everything cleaner. I walked to the pavilion 15 minutes early. The beach was nearly empty, just a few joggers and dog walkers in the distance. Dexter arrived exactly on time, wearing the same confident smile he'd had since we were kids. "Ronin!" He pulled me into a hug that felt like betrayal. "Good to see you, man. You look stressed." "It's been rough, but that's not why I wanted to meet." We sat at a picnic table facing the water. Dexter leaned back casually, but I caught him scanning the area. Old habits from our shared military background. So what's this financial stuff you mentioned? I've been getting calls from my bank. Questions about accounts I don't remember opening. And there's something weird with my military profile. Dexter's expression didn't change, but his posture shifted slightly. What kind of weird? Dependents listed that I've never heard of. A wife named Sarah Martinez. Kids with names I can't even pronounce. That's crazy? Identity theft? That's what I'm thinking. But here's the thing that's bothering me. I leaned. Whoever did this had access to my personal documents, my social security number, my military ID information. Could be a data breach. Those happen all the time. Maybe. But the timing is suspicious. Everything started right after I deployed. Like someone was waiting for me to be out of the country. Dexter was quiet for a long moment, staring at the water. Have you reported it? Not yet. I wanted to figure out how it happened first. The power of attorney I signed before deploying. That gives someone pretty broad access to my affairs. You think someone you trust did this? The question hung in the air between us. This was the moment. Either he'd confess or deflect. I don't know what to think, I said. The person would have to know my schedule, my banking information, my military benefits structure. Dexter rubbed his face with both hands. Ronin, there's something I need to tell you. My heart rate spiked, but I kept my expression neutral. What? I've been in a bad spot financially. Really bad. I lost my job 3 months ago, and my landlord was threatening eviction. Why didn't you tell me? Because you're deployed. You've got enough to worry about without dealing with my problems. So what did you do? Another long pause. I used your information to add some dependents to your military profile. Just temporarily. To get the extra allowance money. How much money? About $800 a month. I was going to pay it back before you got home. How long has this been going on? 4 months, maybe 5. That's $4,000, Dexter. Minimum. I know. I know it was wrong. But I was desperate. What else? What do you mean? The bank accounts. The credit cards. What else did you do? Dexter's face went pale. How did you find out about those? Credit monitoring alerts, strange charges, addresses I've never lived at. Ronin, I can explain. Then explain. I opened a couple of accounts using your information, just to get through this rough patch. I've been making the minimum payments. How many accounts? 3 credit cards, 1 personal loan. How much total? Maybe $12,000, but I'm paying it back. With what money? You said you lost your job. Dexter looked trapped. I got a new job. Part-time. It's not much, but I'm trying. You stole my identity. You committed fraud using my military benefits. You've been lying to me for months. I was going to tell you, when you got back. I was going to have everything sorted out. No, you weren't. You were hoping I'd never find out. Dexter stood up abruptly. I should go. Sit down. Ronin, I'm sorry. I really am. But I can't undo what I did. You're right. You can't. That's when Detective Johnson and 2 federal agents approached from different directions. Dexter saw them coming, and his face went white. Dexter Hawthorne, Johnson said, showing his badge. You're under arrest for identity theft, fraud, and theft of military benefits. The arrest was quick and professional. Dexter didn't resist, but he kept looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. Betrayal? Disappointment? Relief? You wore a wire, he said as they cuffed him. You stole my identity. I'm your cousin. Not anymore. 3 weeks later, Dexter pled guilty to federal fraud charges. The judge sentenced him to 18 months in federal prison and ordered full restitution. The military benefits fraud added another 6 months to his sentence. I testified at his sentencing hearing via video link from Eglin. The judge asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. Your Honor, the defendant didn't just steal money. He stole my trust and family. He stole my peace of mind during Busti. He stole my sense of security about the people I leave behind when I serve my country. Dexter looked at the camera when I spoke, but but I couldn't read his expression through the video feed. After the hearing, Detective Johnson called me. "It's over. All accounts have been closed. Your credit report is being cleaned up. The military has removed the fraudulent dependents from your profile." "What about other victims?" "We found 2. Another service member and an elderly woman. Both cases are being prosecuted separately." I hung up and sat in my quarters for a long time. The silence felt different now. Not empty, just quiet. 6 months later, I was back at Eglin permanently. No more deployments for a while. The Air Force had reassigned me to cybersecurity training. Fitting, considering everything that happened. My credit score had recovered completely. The fraudulent accounts were gone. The fake dependents had been scrubbed from my military records. On paper, it was like Dexter's betrayal never happened. But I still checked my credit report every week. I still got alerts on my phone for every transaction over $50. I still kept my important documents in a fireproof safe. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal the same way. It grows back differently. Stronger in some places, more cautious in others. Marcus transferred to Eglin 3 months after I returned. We worked in the same building now. Different departments, but we grabbed lunch most days. He never mentioned Dexter unless I brought it up first. "You hear from your family much?" he asked one Tuesday. "My parents, my sister. Not the extended family." "That's probably smart." "Yeah?" I'd gotten a letter from Dexter 2 months into his sentence. I threw it away without opening it. Some conversations don't need to happen. The military had implemented new verification procedures for dependent additions. Multiple forms of documentation required. In-person verification for deployed personnel. My case had become a training example in their fraud prevention seminars. I'd started teaching those seminars once a month, standing in front of rooms full of airmen, explaining how identity theft works, how family members can be the biggest threat to your financial security, how to protect yourself. The people closest to you have the most access to your personal information, I'd tell them. Guard it accordingly. After each seminar, at least 3 people would approach me privately. They'd found suspicious activity on their accounts, strange charges, unfamiliar addresses, family members asking too many questions about their benefits. I'd give them Detective Johnson's contact information. He'd started specializing in military identity theft cases. The work felt meaningful, preventing other people from going through what I'd experienced, turning my betrayal into something useful. I host quarterly workshops on shredding and secured document disposal. My apartment was smaller now, fewer possessions. Everything important locked away or digitally encrypted. I'd learned to live with less, trust less, expect less. But I slept better. The constant checking, the paranoia, the waiting for the next shoe to drop. All of that had faded. Replaced by vigilance, but not fear. On quiet evenings, I'd sit on my balcony and watch the sunset over the Gulf. The water stretched out endlessly, reflecting the orange and pink sky. No alerts on my phone. No suspicious emails. No family members asking for favors. Just silence. The kind of silence that comes after a storm passes. When the damage is assessed, the repairs are made, and life begins again. Different than before, but stable. I'd learned something during those months of investigation and legal proceedings. Family isn't just blood, it's trust, it's loyalty. It's showing up when someone needs you, not taking advantage when they're vulnerable. Dexter had been my cousin by blood. Marcus had become my brother by choice. The difference mattered. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus asking if I wanted to grab dinner. I typed back yes, and locked the phone. The sun disappeared below the horizon. The sky darkened. Stars appeared one by one. It was finally over, and the silence felt earned.